All right, take two.
Hello and welcome to the first edition of ProtoBalls Talks, presently unnamed Star Trek podcast series, which we were going to call Starfleet Sessions, but turns out there's already something with that title, and it's done by Brian May, so...
Yeah, couldn't use that.
But this is a series where we will be reviewing episodes of Star Trek.
Correct.
And the first one we're going to start off with is the first episode of Star Trek, The Man Trap.
Correct. It's Star Trek, the original series. It ran from 1966 to 1969. So, a solid 3 years before it ended. Started by Gene Roddenberry, who, by the way, in the original recording, we didn't really get to this, but fuck him, by the way, as a person, as a creative director, fantastic. He created Star Trek, but as a person, fuck him.
I have no idea what's going on.
So as it turns out, Gene Roddenberry's kind of a Weinstein.
Oh, ew.
Yep.
Oh.
He would sleep around with some of the actresses on Star Trek, and sort of pressure them into it. So not fun. Not fun. Nevertheless, Star Trek: The Original Series. It goes by the retronym of the original series because now there's so many different series that have followed it, but it is currently its official name is just Star Trek. Founded by Gene Roddenberry. The original pilot that they did not go very well with producers. So
we'll talk about that in a later episode when we actually talk about that, but
yeah.
Today we'll just be covering the first aired episode of the series.
Correct. And so almost 90% of the cast that was in the pilot episode is gone. Mm-hmm. There's a whole new cast now. It's
almost whole new cast.
New cast.
One actor and character from the original pilot that did make it to the proper series, and thank God, because he's he's easily one of the most famous characters in the entire franchise.
He's arguably
in the entirety of science fiction.
Correct. Yes, you're not wrong about that. He's arguably the most famous character on the show. Outside of I can think of maybe two others outside of Kirk and Picard.
And that is crewman number 3.
Yes.
Love that guy.
I love that guy.
What about we're talking about Spock?
What about crewman number 5? Come on.
Did you not hear what he got into?
Oh, dang it. Listen, we all know the trouble with tribbles.
Yeah, but he's the reason why we know all the troubles with tribbles.
Yes, correct. Sorry, if you've never seen Star Trek, that's an in-joke. We'll talk about tribbles later. But,
we will.
But Leonard Nimoy as Spock, and this was in the midst of him doing a bunch of other projects, but this is primarily the role that he's most famous for. There's also William Shatner, again, also doing a bunch of other stuff at the time. This is his most famous role as James Tiberius Kirk, the captain of the USS Enterprise.
There was also DeForest Kelley as Dr. Leonard McCoy.
Yup.
I know he was in Night of the Lepus.
He's in a couple of stuff.
I mean, I'm sure. I just offhand know that he was in Night of the Lepus because we watched that recently over on Gamma Zilong.
Oh, okay.
A few months back.
Yeah. Did he have an important role, or?
He was in it. He was a pretty minor character.
Okay, that should... Yeah, I guess that tells you all you need to know. And he is the crew's chief medical officer on the USS Enterprise, titled NC-1701. There's also, though he doesn't show up in this first episode, this one is more later. It's James Doohan as Montgomery Scott, who's nicknamed Scotty.
He's probably the fourth most famous character in the series.
Probably.
Probably because of the meme that is an inaccurate quote of the series.
Yes, it is. Yes, I was actually going to mention that. You'll hear people say, like, beat me up, Scotty, but that is never...
That has never been said in this series.
Yeah, it's never uttered in the original series, and it may be jokingly said in, like, later series. I'm not sure on that. But it is never said outright in the original series. Usually what they would say is, 1 to beam up, 1, 2, 3, 4 or so to beam up. Or an emergency, just like quick beam up or whatever.
Or even just the terse beam me up.
Yeah. There's Nichelle Nichols as Nyota Uhura. Very, very famous black actress. This is probably her most famous role, and this is one of the what would you say, most inspirational roles for the time period.
Because it was not only a female African American star having a fairly prominent role in this series, but it was also, inspiring for little girls, both black and white. Predominantly black, but both black and white.
Yeah. There's the famous story that she wanted to quit after season 1, and that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Called her up and begged her to stay on the show because she was such an inspiration to people. And thank God she stayed, because she's great in the role. There's, of course, also our favorite actor in this entire thing, George Takei. Oh my! As Hikaru Sulu, who is the Japanese helmsman of the ship. He's also chief botanist as well, which is...
Doesn't come up very often.
No, it actually doesn't come up very often.
I think this might even be the only episode where it's even relevant, but I could be wrong. They may bring it up in other episodes.
Yeah. Sorry. There's also Majel Barrett, who plays Christine Chapel. She's also in season 1 through 3. She's the head nurse.
I know who Miss Chapel is.
Yep.
I don't think she's in this episode, though.
She might not be in this episode, but she is in all 3 seasons. So she shows up.
I feel she has a more prominent role as the series develops.
Yes, as the series develops and they need more talking heads, it sort of develops that way. And then there's also Grace Lee Whitney as Janice Rand, Yeoman Rand, who only shows up for like 8 episodes in the first season before Whitney got fired for undisclosed reasons. I'm not really sure the reasoning. Actually, I have a theory, and it may involve Roddenberry. So, yeah. I'm hoping that's not true, but if it is, gross. And, of course, and then moving into season 2, he does not show up in season 1, is Walter Koenig as Pavel Chekhov.
Although he is technically present in season 2.
Although he is technically present.
You just never see him. We'll get to... We probably mentioned it when we talked about the second movie, but we'll mention it again when we talk about the relevant episode.
Yes, he is present. He is present as named by word of God, Ricardo Montalban. And that's largely the main cast, and it's a very diverse crew. Of course, Spock is the only technically token alien on the ship, but even then, it's still more than enough representation. Spock is his own character, and
although he is half human.
He is half human. I believe that does not get established until the second season, though. No, never mind. It might actually come up in the first season.
Yeah,
It comes up very rarely early on in the series before it becomes like a huge plot point.
I can't remember if it's even mentioned in this episode or not.
I do not believe it's...
It does establish that he's Vulcan, though, and the series would further establish other traits of the Vulcans to differentiate them from humans. But
correct. Yeah.
Visually, they look almost identical to humans, save for their lightly yellowed skin and pointed ears. And even the yellowed skin is kind of... You kind of gotta look real close to see it, because it's not too prominent.
Yeah, in the original pilot, his look was much different compared to how he would look in the rest of the series, and
his character was
also much different. And that largely has to do with them still trying to
figure out what they were going to do with the character.
Yeah.
So,
and it comes up as sort of an interesting, just an interesting point in the menagerie, which is a later episode, which does call back to the pilot episode and how different Spock's character is. And I believe it does get retconned in, I believe it's Brave New Worlds. I think one of the newer Star Trek series that stars the original characters from the pilot before Kirk takes over the crew, which does have a young Spock and a young Kirk show up. I believe it is Brave New Worlds. I could be wrong, though.
I mean, that sounds like it could be right.
Sorry, no, not Brave New World. I believe Strange New Worlds. Brave New World... Strange New Worlds. Brave New World is a book. A very famous book at that.
I haven't read it. Maybe I should.
You definitely should. It's very interesting. So they largely got this cast set up, and they
this episode actually features a number of the major characters. Like most of the major ones for this first season, so they'll get a bit of time to shine in this one episode, which is one of the good things about this being the debut episode.
Yeah, it's a very solid episode, and it sort of comes from the perspective that all these characters already know each other and have sort of been doing this for a while now. I don't know if any of the later episodes is sort of contradicted or not. I don't believe so. Because this is not the first episode that was in production outside of the pilot. I believe this might have been the third or fourth episode that was in production.
I think it might have been sixth.
Sixth?
If I'm remembering correctly, which I could entirely be wrong about. Let me quick look it up.
Yep, no worries. And, yeah, sixth episode. Because the first episode that is actually in production is... Hold on, let me... What? Yeah, they're all over the place, actually. Whoa, just relax there, buddy.
Production code 6, so it would have been the first episode of the show proper to be produced.
Oh, okay. Weird.
I mean, I'm assuming that's the right number, because if we're counting the original pilot, that would be production code 1.
Yeah, Where No Man Has Gone Before, I believe, is 2B. So that one, I believe, is the first episode in production.
And that one looks like the first episode.
Yes, that one definitely feels like a first episode.
But we'll get to that when we explore that more.
Yeah, I would argue this is probably the best episode to start off with, outside of the best episodes of the season. You know, Space Seed or or Enemy Within, or I don't know, the Menagerie. Like, the Menagerie would have been a cool episode to kick things off with, but that would have
also been kind of weird to have done so, but...
Oh, Balance of Terror would have also been a really good one. Nevertheless, we're just sort of...
So let's finally get into talking about the episode itself.
Yeah, we're just sort of shooting the shit before we get into the episode.
We're giving a bit of a context for the characters and the setting.
Yeah. So
the premise of the series is that a group of people aboard a spaceship are out in space exploring the cosmos.
Yeah, and it sort of has like a space wet. That's probably actually the best way to describe Star Trek in general. Is it's a space western where like these characters come and travel to different new places, or like Deep Space Nine. There's a central hub that the action comes to them about, or when they're out exploring. But it's like a Wild West town where we get new characters that show up, and there's always some sort of conflict that happens that needs to get resolved by the end of the episode. In this one, it's more along the lines of like a Lewis and Clark expedition in space, where they're exploring the quadrant, which is the Alpha Quadrant, by the way. That does become important later on in the series, but not right now. It's only 1/4 of the solar system, not the solar system, but the galaxy that we live in. They're essentially, their whole deal is they go out, looks for strange new things, encounter new things,
occasionally transport stuff to established worlds.
Occasionally get into hijinks.
Well, let's face it, it's more than occasionally.
It's more than occasionally. Over two.
It wouldn't be a terribly interesting show if they didn't often get into hijinks.
I'd say 2/3 of the hijinks that they get into are out of their control, and then a third of that is totally preventable, but because they're kind of dumb at times. We gotta do things by the book, which is another thing, by the way. Kirk has this reputation of being a rule breaker, and it's not really true in the series. I can think of only maybe 2 or 3 times.
He bends the rules.
Yeah,
a bit.
He bends the rules, but he never outright breaks them like he does in the movies.
Not very often, no.
Yeah. Not like he does in the movies, where, like, I think that's where the infamous Kirk reputation of just breaking rules comes from. Because it's established he cheated. He cheated on, like, the no-win scenario. He stole a starship. He did a bunch of crimes, basically. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Largely...
So, now 5 minutes after we said we were going to get into the episode. Let's finally get into the episode.
So, the larger overall premise of the episode is sort of, it's sort of a take...
A routine medical examination goes horribly awry.
Correct. And it's like, I guess the best way to describe it's similar to, it's kind of a mix between The Thing from Another World and The Thing proper, in that there is a shape-shifting monster that kills people for their nutrients, salt, largely, and is able to hide itself among the crew. Not very well, but tries to.
I mean, it does a pretty good job most of the time.
For the most part, but it still kind of makes itself come off as...
So the episode starts with Kirk McCoy and...
a random blue shirt.
Red shirts weren't really a thing at this point, but they're just going down to this old, desolate planet that an archaeologist named Dr. Crater and his wife Nancy, an old friend of McCoy's, are staying on to give them the routine annual medical examination. And they first encounter Nancy, and it quickly becomes clear that not one of the three Enterprise crewmen see the same woman. McCoy sees Nancy as he remembers her from their younger days. Kirk sees her as a somewhat older woman, and the third guy sees her as somebody completely random.
Yeah, just a random blonde woman.
In fact, he comments on the fact that she reminds him of somebody he had left behind on a pleasure planet.
Yeah, and so McCoy sort of shoos him away, and he goes outside or whatever. And so Dr. McCoy asks where Crater is, and they go and look for Crater while Nancy goes outside. You put your phone on silence, mister.
I wasn't expecting anybody to message me.
For shame. For shame. And,
Hey, it could be a lot worse.
yeah, it could be a lot worse.
We'll explain that later.
Yeah, we could explain it 3 hours later. Context. And so Nancy sort of leaves, and
in doing so, she lures the third guy away to his death.
Spoiler alert. We're just gonna get out with it. Nancy's the monster in this episode.
I mean, the episode doesn't shy away from that fact. I mean, the fact that they present her as appearing differently to three people is good evidence to it.
Yeah, she is a sort of Venus flytrap, which, the episode's name, the man trap.
Although just men.
Yeah, I think it's more just the general term. I think it's just a play on Venus flytrap. Correct. Yeah, he asks for salt tablets, and he eventually relents to doing the medical exam. And
especially when
Nancy starts screaming.
And they rush out and find the dead man.
Yeah, the dead blue shirt.
With Nancy claiming that autopsy, he's conferring with Kirk and says, by all accounts, this man should be up and around. Because we just can't be bothered to remember it because he's, just the generic character who will die.
Yeah. Oh, Darnell. As is the case with almost all of Star Trek crews. If you're not named, you're extremely likely to die. Version of the Enterprise, which has somewhere between 200 to 300 crewmen, thousands of crewmen, because it's a ginormous fucking ship in comparison. If you're not a battleship, and like an airline battleship that can carry planes and shit, it's massive. That McCoy doesn't catch the lack of sodium levels in the dead man Darnell.
Doesn't help that he wasn't looking for anything missing. He was looking for a foreign toxin.
Yeah. When she's the lying monster.
Granted, they don't initially have any reason to.
You're not doing your job properly. You need to stop thinking about Nancy and start helping me figure out what the fuck happened. Context of the plot, it's not a very important scene, which is why we can cut between the important thing now and then get to it. So I guess for a little lore explanation, Vulcans come from the planet Vulcan, which is named after.
Really?
Yes.
The Vulcan from this show.
I'm not sure. I actually think that one was found first. No, regardless, that's neither here nor there. But the people of Vulcan, this does become important to the series later. They sort of split into two groups. The emotion.
We'll talk about the two groups.
Yeah.
When it actually becomes relevant.
But largely speaking, one's emotion driven, one's logic driven. The emotion group leaves. And the people that are left become the modern Vulcans, who are all about logic and reason and not feeling emotions. So much so that their entire culture is sort of built around suppressing emotion.
Except in certain instances.
Except in certain circumstances, yes. And this society of this entire species is much older than the human race. We're talking hundreds of thousands of years older than humans.
Which is not an uncommon thing in this series.
No, not really.
There are plenty of episodes that focus on even characters that are older than humanity.
The other thing to consider is that Vulcans are the very first species that humans encounter in spaceflight in the Star Trek timeline, at least in the Alpha timeline, and so they and the humans, Vulcans and humans, eventually formed a sort of space organization, which is called the United Federation of Planets. So it's
The Federation.
yeah, it's the Federation is what it's known as. And
It's often just shorthand, the Federation.
yeah. The United Federation of Planets. And so there's a couple of other species that are also in the Federation, but in the original series, it's just humans and Vulcans at the moment.
Or at the very least with regards to the crew of the Enterprise.
Yeah.
We do see a number of other races from the Federation, but...
Yeah, the big problem with the original series is that they do not have a budget, and it's also the 60s, so there's not much... special effects were not a priority.
Yeah, later shows do a better job of being more intergalactically diverse.
Yeah, Next Generation...
Interplanetarily
Yeah,
diverse.
Next Generation immediately comes to mind because they've got a Klingon. We'll explain that later. They've got a Klingon, they've got a Betazoid, they've got an android. All these other different, like, species that are still human-esque, though. Because it's Star Trek. You kind of have to have humanoid species. Otherwise, it kind of... It's not like Star Wars where it's a big budget movie series where you can afford to have like non-humanoid species. So we're sorry, I'm getting off track though.
It's fine.
So Spock is a Vulcan. He is unfeeling, very logical, and he doesn't really understand the flirting. Because he's been raised on Vulcan his entire life, and they don't really flirt. Which kind of begs the question how they find mates, but that's neither here nor there.
That's relevant in another episode.
Yeah, that's relevant in another episode.
That basically gets explained there. We'll not talk about it here.
Yeah. But as far as the original series is concerned, though, there's 3 major factions. But we're only worried about the Federation.
Because they're the only ones relevant in this episode.
They're the only ones relevant in the episode. And so Uhura and Spock, they sort of have a tete-a-tete. And they have a nice little conversation, and Uhura's like fascinated by Spock. Because she considers him like an interesting person overall. Throughout the series, they do get along very well. Everybody gets along very well. I mean, that's no shock.
More or less.
More or less. There does get to be conflict, but that's largely as a...
Circumstantial.
Yeah, it's a circumstantial consequence of the job. But, Uhura, I'm not really sure. Like, Uhura's, I guess, sort of like... I'm like the only like woman in charge on this ship, or at least in some form of like baseline command.
She's a bridge crew.
Yeah, she's part of the bridge crew, and I believe she's either 5th or 6th in command. Because I'm trying to remember this now. The line of command, I believe it's Kirk, Spock, and then it is. Sulu, later on Chekhov, and then Uhura.
What about Scotty?
Scotty
has some command.
Scotty has some command, but he's largely in charge of the engine room.
Right, but like I'm talking of like special circumstances.
Yeah, in special circumstances. But as far as
other characters you mentioned would have deferred.
Yeah, would have deferred to him. But as far as bridge command goes, that's the main 5. Uhura's like 5th in command. And Spock is the science officer of the ship. So there's 3 different kinds of outfits in the original series.
Blue, red, and
yellow.
With yellow being like the command. And...
Yeah, yellow is command. I mean, it doesn't really actually matter in the original series because everybody serves sort of a different purpose. But yellow...
It depends, yeah. Like you'll get red that can represent both engineering and security.
Yeah, it's kind of
which is where the whole red shirt thing came from. But we'll talk about that in later episodes.
Yeah. So yellow is sort of command and command and I'm trying to think. Not engineering. It's navigation. command and navigation. Red shirt is engineering and security, and blue is largely science and medical. But that doesn't really necessarily get established until much later in the original series. Right now, everybody just sort of
has a random color.
Has a random color to fit their jobs. And so eventually, Spock analyzes the plant, the alleged plant, or he analyzes the planet and sort of lets Kirk and McCoy know that, hey, there's no poisonous plants on this planet. None that could be considered toxic to humans, at least. And so so Kirk and McCoy are just like, that's interesting. We should probably go back down.
So they go back down to meet up with Crater and Nancy to try and bring them up to the ship until they can figure out what's going on. Bringing along a pair of crewmen with them.
Yep, they bring Green and Sturgeon with them. And Kirk and McCoy try to convince Crater to come with them. And Nancy is nowhere to be seen.
But Sturgeon dies, and Green ends up rejoining Kirk and McCoy to beam back up.
It turns out...
Green actually stayed behind.
Yeah. Because he's also dead. Whoa. He's been assimilated. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
He's the thing.
No, but this starts basically a storyline in which the creature is aboard the ship and is trying to hunt for prey. And so initially, Green Monster starts pursuing Yeoman Rand.
Yep. Who has Yeoman Rand has a tray for Sulu, which has like a
meal.
It has a meal on it, but a salt shaker. And because the creature is attracted to salt, it wants the salt.
It stalks her to the botany lab.
Yeah, stalks her to the botany lab, and there's Sulu and Rand are there, and they're sort of like weirded out by Green thing.
I love how in this scene there's a plant that is clearly just a guy with his hand through the table. Wearing a glove.
It's wearing like a puppet glove or whatever, and it goes insane.
It and some of the other plants just start freaking out once Green thing shows up.
Yep, which causes Green to flee, and so then Green thing chooses to stalk Uhura.
Changing its form into a random, nameless crew member.
Yeah,
try seducing her.
Yeah, an African-American crew member to try and seduce Uhura. And Uhura is sort of like...
If it knows Swahili, is it African-American or could it just be African? I mean, granted, it's an alien, so it's...
Okay, well,
it's
yes.
a moot point, but...
It's a moot point.
Of African descent.
Of African descent. You make a good point. I shouldn't... That's a common naming thing that we Americans do that we're kind of bad at. We call any black person African American
regardless. I try to avoid it as best I can.
Yeah, regardless of whether or not they're actually American or not. So like
I'll say it definitively if it is American.
Yeah, like for example, Haitians accidentally get the antonym of African American. Technically, they are American, but they're not American. They're Haitian, and so they're Caribbean. They are of Caribbean descent. That's just one example. So Africans who are from Africa are Africans, but African Americans who are descended from Africans are African American.
I mean, by all accounts, the actor playing this iteration of the character probably is African American.
Yeah, it's neither here nor there. Long story short, Uhura's kind of suspect of it to begin with, because she doesn't recognize this person.
She's also so entranced by him.
Yeah.
It's like Space Candyman.
It's a, oh god. Yep, rest in peace. Rest in peace.
And I had just watched 2 movies with him last month.
Dude, I watched Night of the Living Dead, the remake, the other day, and he's really good in that, too.
That was like the first iteration of Night of the Living Dead I'd ever seen.
Yeah,
I saw it on TV. So
yeah. How'd you like Cooper in that one? Dude sucked.
I actually don't remember a whole lot about my watching of the remake. So
we should definitely watch it sometime.
I mean, I'm up for it. I liked it.
It's a fine remake. It's just not the original.
Technically, this is Star Trek relevant because Tony Todd was in Next Generation.
Yes, he was.
So,
yes, he was.
So not as much of a tangent as you might believe.
Exactly. Yeah, and this is just a power of the creature, is that it has the ability to sort of hypnotize and entrance people.
But the spell is kind of broken when Kirk starts sending a message calling for Uhura and other people start showing up. I dropped my phone! No!
Oh no, what have you done?
It's on your side of the table.
No.
I got it. I fixed it.
So, sorry. So, as it turns out, there is one plant that is toxic on the planet, but it doesn't cause the sort of side of
mottling.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Skin.
It doesn't cause mottling of the skin. So, yeah. So eventually, Green finds McCoy's room, and McCoy is sort of he's sort of down on himself because he
can't figure this out.
He can't figure out what the hell is wrong with everything.
And Kirk suggests he take a rest, and even recommends he takes one of the red pills that
he takes.
McCoy had recommended he try, which thankfully it seems like it's just a mild sedative because when Nancy Creature shows up, she basically hands him the bottle and he's okay with taking it.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly it's at least a safe enough just sedative. Like a sleeping pill basically. Because he doesn't think twice about it.
Yeah.
Especially given that he would know that Nancy probably doesn't have the medical knowledge.
So
well, she does.
I don't know. So McCoy is sort of drugged and taken out for most of the episode now, and Nancy Creature decides to
lay low for a little bit.
Yeah, decides to lay low for a bit and poses McCoy.
Now Kirk and Spock beam down. They find the dead Green.
Yeah, and so the reason that Kirk and Spock go down is because they do an examination of the planet and they only find that one person is down there. And so they go, okay, that's a suspect. We need to go check this out.
And so around this time that when they go down, they find Green and
yeah, they
realize
find
there's something going on. They try to bring Crater in, but he is incredibly hesitant. So Spock distracts him while Kirk goes around and stuns him.
Yeah, because they find
the shot where Kirk stuns him. It's clearly a sped up footage, a la Godzilla Raids Again when he's fighting Anguirus.
Yeah,
it looks so ridiculous.
Yeah, they find Green and Sturgeon, and then they stun Crater in one of the worst special effects you could ever see.
And then as he's slowly recovering from being stunned, he sounds kind of like this. Because they slowed down the audio, but somehow got it to match up with the video.
They slowed it down and pitched it up a little bit to fit it. They pitched it down and sped it up. And so basically, this is where Crater spills the beans, and he's like, "Yeah, it's not Nancy. It's just a creature that killed Nancy like a year ago." And
but it's an endangered species, so
it's an endangered species. It's the last one of its kind.
It's like the buffalo.
Which at that point it reveals we get the reveal that buffaloes are extinct in this timeline. American buffaloes are not extinct. in this timeline.
In this real world timeline.
In this real world timeline, they're near threatened.
Let's call it timeline beta.
Actually, it's alpha timeline.
No, this is timeline beta.
Oh, this is timeline beta. But timeline beta is the J.J. Abrams movies. Or actually,
no, I thought it was the Kelvin timeline.
Oh, it's the Kelvin timeline for that one. Sorry.
That's what the DVD or Blu-ray collection calls it.
No, you know what? No, beta timeline I think is the non-canon stuff. So yes, we're in the non-canon timeline of Star Trek. No,
that's actually pretty good. That means that nothing that's actually happening in the real world matters because it's not canon.
Yes.
I can die somewhat happy.
But no, in the 60s, actually, so this is actually very relevant. In the 60s, the American buffalo, the American bison, was endangered, very heavily endangered. But due to thanks to conservation efforts and everything, it's actually only near threatened now. So it's actually not in the endangered list anymore, which is fantastic news, by the way.
But anyway, now that Kirk and Spock know what's up, they take Crater back up to the Enterprise and convene a meeting with everybody. Uhura shares her experience with the Mystery Man, and it's pretty clear that Crater knows that McCoy is not McCoy, because I think it's established that Crater sees the creature for what it really is because it doesn't need to disguise itself around him.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just going to say, as another aside to the bison thing, this is right when conservation efforts had actually begun in the mid-60s. In 1889, there was 541 bison left in America. So, yeah, nowadays there's 31,000, which is just enough to get it out of endangered. You were saying?
But anyway, Crater knows that McCoy is the creature because it's not disguising itself in his mind. And I think at one point, McCoy thing, while on the bridge and talking with the crew members, lets slip that it's a creature aboard the ship before they actually are certain that it's a creature.
Yeah, it's before they even realize that it's a creature.
But then it quickly corrects itself, assuming that it is a creature. It's probably just looking for salt, and we should probably just give it the salt.
Yeah,
it's like that one Robot Chicken sketch where it's Jaws, and Jaws is just disguised as one of the people in the town hall meeting. It's like, I say we let him go!
I say we let him go! Okay, hey, sounds good to me.
But everybody aboard the ship is ordered to quarters. Oh, what is it called?
I don't know.
Everybody is ordered to stay in quarters for a general alert.
Mm-hmm.
And Crater and McCoy go off to presumably come up with a way of luring the creature. A bit later, they find Spock goes to check up on them. And then later, Kirk finds that Spock has been attacked and Crater is dead, having been drained of its salt. And Spock is like, it's McCoy. McCoy's the creature.
McCoy's the creature. Yeah, and so we finally get to the finale.
Where the creature retreats to McCoy's cabin.
And there's a big hayrube that happens. Kirk tries to convince McCoy to shoot Nancy,
which is now the form it's taken.
Yep. And then Kirk almost bites the dust in this one
because Nancy thing kind of hypnotizes him, and he just kind of freezes.
Yep. And
Spock is like, "Shoot the damn thing!"
You shoot the damn thing. But it's Nancy.
And then Spock starts beating on it, and it just kind of no-sells the whole thing. It's like, is this really Nancy? Would Nancy be able to take this kind of assault?
Yeah.
And then Nancy thing tosses him aside.
Yeah,
and that basically convinced McCoy, okay, this thing isn't Nancy.
This thing's not Nancy, and he finally
reluctantly shoots the creature dead.
Yeah, he finally musters the ability to shoot Nancy thing, and it turns out it's a creature that has suckers for
on its fingers.
And
it's like a leech monster.
Yeah, and so McCoy sort of has to deal with that. Hell of a first episode.
Oh yeah, like I said, every major character in this season, save Scotty, has some significant character moment in this episode.
All of them get trauma. No, just kidding.
No, it's McCoy. I mean, unless Rand was really into green until he started being creepy.
That reminds me of the O'Brien must suffer meme, which is a real thing in Star Trek, because Miles O'Brien in Deep Space Nine, he gets fucking everything thrown at him. And it's just like, come on, what did the guy do to deserve this? You'd think like the cosmic universe just hated O'Brien or something.
Unfortunately, he's the victim of cosmic horror.
Yes, basically. So yeah, that was the main...
I have no context for that statement. I was just putting that out there. I have not seen Deep Space Nine, so I don't know how accurate my statement was.
Yeah, he doesn't really do much in Next Generation, but he's a starting cast member originally on Next Generation, but then he switches over to Deep Space Nine.
Okay.
So he's one of the more long-running characters in the series.
Yeah, I still got to get around to watching Next Generation, though I haven't, and I can watch it.
It's that finally?
It showed up a while ago. I just haven't gotten around to watching it because I've been watching other stuff.
I just know that you didn't receive it the first time round.
Yeah, because apparently the package got damaged and it got sent back, and they canceled the order, so I had to order it again.
Damn you.
Instead of just sending me a new one.
Damn you, Amazon. Damn you, Jeff Bezos!
That wasn't even the only problem I had with an order within the past few months.
So, 6 out of 10?
I think 7 out of 10.
I think, yeah, it was 6 or 7 out of 10. It's a good starting episode. Everybody sort of gets a moment to sort of display their characters.
There are better episodes, but there are far worse episodes. And this generally leans more on the positive side than the negative. And I will talk about some of the episodes I give low ratings for. Let me tell you.
I was just thinking about my favorite episode, A Piece of the Action.
I think that might have been the first episode I ever actually saw.
It's so good. It's not only is it so dumb, but it's amazing, and I love it. It knows it's a dumb...
I think I watched that in another episode. I can't remember which one, but I was like, this is a show I need to watch.
Yeah, Star Trek's amazing when it has, like...
It's like for years, I had the ability to watch Next Generation and just had no interest in doing so.
And Next Generation's not... The first 4 seasons are not great. Because at least original series, it actually starts good from the jump. And even like season 3, while it's not great, in comparison to the first 2 seasons, it's still got a lot of good stuff. Next Generation, the first 4 seasons are not really fun. Deep Space Nine, the first 2 seasons are not that great. Voyager, maybe the entire series is on and off. And then there's Enterprise, which is just not good.
And I have not seen any of those.
Yeah. Well, you're going to be seeing stuff. So, yeah, it's a good introductory episode, as we said at the top of this episode of the podcast. Not the best episode of Star Trek, but still a very good introduction. There's the better that will be coming eventually.
Get some nice introductions for the characters to help establish them this early on.
Yeah.
It's a one-off plot that you don't need to reference for others. And thankfully, a lot of episodes of the original series are one-offs that...
Yeah, there is no real overarching storyline outside.
There are episodes that are relevant to later episodes, but
outside of like the Klingon episodes, there's no real overarching plot.
Klingon or Romulan episodes.
Yeah.
This is just a standard Monster of the Week episode, and that's perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
It eases the audience in.
Yeah, like season 1 is one of those weird seasons where it's like it's a mix of like Monster of the Week, Base Under Siege, or hey, here's a wacky thing that the crew has gotten into that doesn't involve the ship or a monster.
But this one also waxes philosophical at times.
Yeah.
So there is like the moral dilemma of, do we kill this endangered creature?
Is it? Yeah. Even if a species is hostile, do we have the right to exterminate it? Which...
especially if it has the potential for intelligence.
Mm-hmm. Which is not the first or the last... Well, it is the first, but it's not going to be the last time that Star Trek sort of waxes philosophical about potential genocide. See Deep Space Nine for that.
Again, I have no context.
Yeah. Deep Space Nine is built on the back end of a genocide. Mm-hmm. Within the narrative. It's like the aftermath of a long genocide.
Tell you what, you pick me up that series for Christmas, and I will eventually get around to watching it.
Oh, I got something else to I was also planning on getting you something else for Christmas too, but I can do both.
Yeah. I mean, it's up to you.
Yeah, it's just a matter of where the heck to... I mean, because I don't want to support Amazon. You know what I mean? Nevertheless, that's a conversation for a different time. We're already way too into the weeds for this.
This is longer than the episode itself was.
Yes.
We kind of went on some tangents, but I feel we did a bit better of a job this time around than the first time we recorded this podcast.
Oh yes, this is why I said take 2 at the beginning of the episode.
So we actually recorded the podcast for this episode last week, and just as we were wrapping up, there was a blackout that caused the whole recording to be unusable.
Yep.
I had hoped that we had salvaged enough of it to be able to make it, but when I put it into the video editor to make a video for YouTube, it would not take it.
Yeah, I assume the file was just corrupted. So yeah, and we were without power for 3 hours.
Really unfortunate timing.
In sub 50 degree weather. Which may not say a lot. Well, and it was also windy too. That was the other thing.
And it was getting close to night.
And it was like we lost power at like 4:30 in the afternoon, and we did not get power back until 7 o'clock at night during daylight savings time. Yeah, yeah.
Actually, I think daylight savings time is over. So post daylight savings time.
Either way.
They really need to get rid of that. They really need to decide to get rid of that or not. I remember they sent a bill to one of the houses of Congress, and that passed unanimously, and then nothing happened with the bill since.
Well, we don't have to worry about any of that now. We've
got a lot more to worry about. Yeah, but that's beside the point.
We don't. Yeah, daylight savings time is the least of our worries. So I guess with that said, who's your favorite character so far?
I mean, you're asking me after I've seen the entire series.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, it's probably Spock, right?
I mean, he's up there.
I mean, there's like 5 characters you could name as like the best or your favorite character. There's
Like,
Kirk, there's Kirk, McCoy, Sulu, Spock, Scotty. You know.
Yeah, my immediate 3 is which of the 3 top ones do I pick? And that's Kirk, McCoy, and Spock.
who, mind you, do form the basis for the trope of the trio, the Kirk, the Spock, and the McCoy, where Kirk is the level-headed decision maker. He's the sort of the decisive one. And then there's Spock, who is all logic and reason, and then McCoy, who is basically
emotional.
Yeah, he's basically the heart of the crew. Whereas, McCoy's the heart of the crew. Spock is the brain of the crew, and then
Kirk's the penis.
Yeah, let's go with that. Yeah. Listen. I don't get why that's a joke, or, like, why that's a meme.
I do, because I've watched the series. And he practically hits on every woman he comes across.
Sure, but how many does he fuck? He only fucks, like, 5 women in the entire series.
And that's only because of practices and standards.
Yes! That's only because of standards and practices and meh.
He probably would have banged a lot more.
He would have banged Uhura if it wasn't fucking racism. If it wasn't for racism, he would have banged Uhura. I swear to God. They do kiss.
They do kiss.
They do kiss.
Against their will. Gotta be, make a point of mentioning
Yes, that. Yes.
But we'll talk about that in that relevant episode.
There were special circumstances. Nevertheless, Jesus Christ, what have we done?
What have we gotten ourselves into?
What have we gotten ourselves? But no, it's like Kirk has this bad reputation of being like a flirt, and I mean, yes, he does flirt with women. He likes a lot. Okay. But like he gets this reputation as like a flirtation, like as a sex fiend rule breaker, and that's not really accurate to his character.
Right, he doesn't break the rules that often.
He doesn't. Shut up. God damn it. Is it because of the green lady?
He doesn't even have anything to do with the green lady.
Yeah, that's the weird thing.
I know.
Everybody's like, oh, Kirk fucks a green lady, and it's like,
no, he doesn't.
They're not even in the same episode.
I mean, technically, but like, not temporally.
Yeah, they're like tangentially related.
I mean, they clearly associate the fact that the green lady shows up in the end credits for the first season and just assume that he fucked her at some point. It's like, no, he didn't.
No, he didn't. The green lady's in the pilot, by the way, in case that wasn't clear.
And now we're just digging around at this point.
We're just digging around at this point. But no, like fucking Star Trek 1 even has the my oath of celibacy is on record, and it's like, what the fuck? What are we doing here? Why did that have to be a line, Gene? Why'd that have to be? Why'd you feel the need to put that in there? What about the other women, huh? Didn't they have choices? Well, fuck you, Gene. Anyways,
I mean, to be a bit fair, that character had her whole deal was that she was a race of aliens that produced pheromones that attracted men.
I guess, yeah.
So,
that's neither here nor there. I don't even know if that's really established in the movie.
I'm pretty sure it is.
I can't remember. Nevertheless, that's besides the point. Like, Star Trek 2, he has a kid. Star Trek 3, his kid dies. And then he still fucks anything that moves in 4, 5, and 6. I was just like, come on, Kirk. What are we doing here? He fucks 3 different... No.
And that's just in the movies.
Sorry, no, he doesn't fuck the three-breasted lady in 5. He actually just beats the shit out of her. Context! No context.
It's like, wait, did you think of Total Recall just now? Because I don't remember that movie.
Oh, yeah. Dude, oh my god, I just realized there's a three-breasted woman in Total Recall and a three-breasted cat lady in Star Trek 5.
Oh, now that you mentioned the cat lady, now I remember her.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I remember the fact that she was...
Or is it 4 breasts? I don't remember. That's... Total... Star Trek's weird, man.
It's anatomically correct, technically, but... Come on.
We need to end this episode. We need to abort.
Until next time, I'm ProtoMet.
This is Barry.
See ya.
Bye.